There we go.
There we are. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the Southampton Local School Committee meeting. The date is November 10th, 2021. Time is 6:01 p.m. I call this meeting to order. My name is Austin Rogers. I'm the vice chair of the committee. John Lumber is unable to be here tonight, so I will be taking over for him for tonight. The first matter of business is the approval of minutes, for which we have one set to review for possible vote. Does anyone have any motions on this set of minutes?
I just looked at it tonight. I don't know about you, but I just saw it when she sent the email today, so I didn't really get to fully go through it yet.
Yep.
I saw one error in it. I don't know if you want to table it for revision or,
Okay.
but the error is under where it said I had it here. The one that said appointed me to the Southampton group, which was not the case. It was the authority was granted to Superintendent Bonneville to appoint to the Hampshire Regional School Committee.
It's under D,
Under-
on the reports. So, next page of that, D.
No, that's not that one.
Oh,
It's the, I'm sorry. I reviewed it on my computer, so I didn't see the pages. You know what, I was going to move the table until next meeting.
Okay. Move to table. Second. Second from Allison. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay. That's the only one that we had to receive. Doesn't look like correspondence is on here, but
I think there were any.
I wasn't aware of any correspondence. No, okay. All right, so public comments. Entertain a motion to open public comment.
Motion to open public comment for 15 minutes. Each person limited to 3 minutes of speaking time, and each person can talk one at a time until everyone who wants to speak has spoken.
Okay,
I'll second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? None? So the motion passes. So we're going to open public comment. For those that couldn't make it or have comments to make outside of this time, you can always email the committee at southsc@scm.hr-k12.org. This time is not meant to be a Q&A or a debate. It's meant to be a time for people to express their views on school committee business only. So if you have a comment to make, step forward. You will be recognized. State your name and connection to Norris. We're going to have 3 minutes per speaker until everyone's had a chance, and then we can return to people if they have additional comments. Does anyone want to speak?
Excuse me one. Yes, it's me again, Jennifer Johnson. I still have kids that attend Norris School. Here we are another month into school, and our children are still being forced to wear masks while in school. They are still being forced to learn through muffled sounds and responding in the same fashion. Their social emotional well-being an afterthought to keeping everyone healthy. Another mandate pushed back until enough of the least vulnerable population has been forced, scared, or coerced into taking a shot that does nothing but potentially harm them far more than the actual disease. Do I sound like a broken record? Because I certainly feel like one. At the last meeting, Stephanie Foss said that she was completely fine with there being no testing options at the Norris, but you approved pool testing and test and stay, as long as it was done by the state people. Now we have the National Guard coming in to do it. Parents and school officials don't want uniformed police officers at school to protect our children from potential school shootings because they don't want them to go to school in a war zone, but the National Guard can come in to test them daily. Will they be in uniform? Will they be acting out any other orders that their superiors are giving them while they're there? Are we just truly heading towards martial law, and this is our way of desensitizing our children to seeing military personnel all the time? I know many of you are thinking, wow, this woman has lost it and sounds crazy. But last year when I mentioned needing vaccine papers to travel or such, people said the exact same thing, and now look where we are. Where does it stop? How can you say, can you hold this for me? How can you say we are following DESE mandates and guidance when DESE doesn't follow their own mandates or guidance? By a show of hands, did any of you attend the Mass Association of School Committees retreat this past weekend on the Cape? Here are a few photos I brought to share, and there are tons more I could have chosen from. So here we have Commissioner Jeff Riley and his deputy commissioner, or whoever she is. Do you see masks on any of them? No. Drinking in a bar. This is a state representative to the House of Representatives of the state. This woman looks like she's eating her microphone. They're hugging, neither of them are masked. Do we think that this microphone was sanitized between everyone's faces touching it? Probably not. I found no evidence of that, and I looked through a lot of pictures. More people. Here's a crowd picture. There's very few masks. Book signing. No masks. This woman actually took her mask down to talk to this woman. I don't know who half of these people are, but I know these are people in power that are telling you what you need to do, and they're not doing it. Thank you. I don't see there being 6 feet between people while eating. I don't see a minimum of 3 feet between people. Certainly the mask rule is not being followed at all. Why is this okay? Also, my child's not allowed to play her recorder in school. She has to go outside to play it. But there was some Native American people there. This man was allowed to sing and bang his drum, which all more power to him, I support whatever this cause was. But why is it okay for them and not for my child? The excuse, please don't tell me it's because they were vaccinated, because that excuse is getting really old and holds no value due to the fact that the vaccine does not prevent the spread of the disease. Oh, and it must be because they were eating and drinking. If that's the case, then I will be telling my children they don't need to wear masks as long as there's a water bottle on their desk. No, that's not the reason they did it. It's because they are adults and are allowed to choose what they want to do. Our kids do not get that luxury, which is why they are using them and preying on them in the name of health. Do you think we will hear about on the news that that event was being a super spreader? Of course not. When did this country, or even this state, become okay with do as I say, not as I do? If wearing a mask or taking a shot makes you feel safer and proud because you are a better person than someone who won't, then great, that's your choice. It is also my choice to not do those things and make those decisions for my child, not you or those hypocrites. I want to demand to have masks dropped by the time the kids come back from Christmas break, if not before. And I know for a fact that there's a ruling coming down at the end of November on some suits that have been brought against DESE on this exact issue. To shift gears, I want to go to the issue of close contacts. My daughter was recently identified as a close contact, and I would love to know first what the exact formula we are using to determine what is a close contact. Next, why is it that vaccinated people are not considered close contacts? And not to beat a dead horse, but we know that the shot does not prevent the spreading or contracting of COVID. So why do they get special treatment? Because they complied? Last, what is the protocol for learning while these children are kept from attending school? When I spoke to Sharon Hart, I was given 3 options, and all of them involved missing at least 1 week of school. With so much lost learning already, how is this okay? My child never showed any symptoms, so why could she not be in school where she is to wear a mask that is protecting everyone from the big bad germs? She missed 6 days of school, and I got a good deal of work sent home from her teacher, which was more than I expected and I was happy to have. However, it's all worksheets, which is not the best form of learning, dare I say, for anyone. I was informed that you spent a great deal of money last year to be able to live stream the teachers in the classroom. Was it used last year? And why is it not an option for our students at home to listen in on the things being taught in the classroom? That's right, because it was taken out of the classroom. Or at least that's what I've been told. So was all that lost money? I am sure this is not the last time either of my children will be in close contact, and giving our feelings on the subject, as of now, they will not be getting tested at school or anywhere else. So what is the plan for making sure they aren't losing their education? Because even if I got my daughter tested, she still would have missed 5 days of school, and a bunch of worksheets is not going to cover it. Thankfully, my daughter is doing well in school, so I'm sure it's going to have a huge impact on her overall learning. But we can't say that about every child that is sent home to quarantine. We need to do better for these kids, and that is your job. Everyone must be allowed to make their own choices and not be discriminated against for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to be heard?
I can use, I have a daughter at Norris, 3rd grader. Again, I didn't really prepare anything. I just have a question regarding vaccine mandates. I'm very encouraged to see that there's a stay on the employer vaccine mandate that's being implemented. My question is, if and when somebody in the state or the government tells you that we have to mandate this vaccine for our children, what are you going to do? Are you going to comply with that, or are you going to push back?
We're not doing Q&A, but if you email us your question, we can respond to it.
Okay.
Sorry, that's
No,
just the way
that's
it's...
okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. So I just want to list off some things that I want to, you don't have to answer, obviously, we're not Q&A, but how many of you know children that have the following: myocarditis, pericarditis, strokes, heart attacks, blood clots, functional neurological disorder, Bell's palsy, and spontaneous deaths? My assumption is you probably know very few, if any. Unfortunately, we're about to enter a period where these are going to become common afflictions, mark my words. And I don't want any of you to live with that guilt on your backs because you didn't do something to fight against mandating a vaccine that is not even a traditional vaccine. It is completely experimental. We don't know the long-term implications that this is going to have on our children. I do know plenty of adults that have had adverse effects. I mentioned last time, I know a medical doctor personally who has now known 6 people that have died after getting the vaccine. More and more of those stories are becoming commonplace. I'm begging you, please, you have to do your research. Read the articles where doctors are bravely standing up, people at NIH are bravely standing up and saying, no, we can't, I'm not okay with this. They're putting their livelihood on the line to stand up for what they know is right. We need to do better for our kids, and I'm begging you, please, please do not go with the mandate for our children. If that comes to light, we have to fight this, and we all have to come together. That's the only thing that I'm encouraged about, is how many people from all different socioeconomic groups, different belief systems are coming together worldwide and protesting the mandating of vaccines. This should be a choice. Patient autonomy needs to be preserved, and I'm hoping that you guys will come together with us, so many of us in the community that are against this, and stand up for what is right and protect our children, because we don't know what's going to happen even years from now. So please, just please promise me that you'll really do your research on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Another.
Brian Musa, most importantly, I'm a taxpayer for Norris, I guess, as we all are, right? I've got a daughter. Yep.
Are we at 15 minutes now? I'm sorry, I mean
Yeah, so just 1 second. Anyone want to move to...
Move to
Motion to add, what, an additional 10 minutes?
Okay.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
For me again, I had written some notes down at home and I forgot to bring them, but just to share some updated news. I had COVID 3 weeks ago. Okay, I got COVID from somebody who was fully vaccinated. I know that for a fact. Okay, so fully vaccinated people are spreading this disease. According to a chief Pfizer scientist, I am now more immune to COVID than somebody who's been vaccinated. That's from a Pfizer scientist. Okay, and my immunity is going to last longer than the vaccine because I had it naturally. Going back to what Ivy was saying, this disease, children have a 99.x% recovery rate. So why are you going to inject this toxin into children? Okay. Whistleblower from Pfizer, Melissa Strepnik, blew the whistle that Pfizer was using aborted fetal cells in their COVID vaccines. This is something that most people are not aware of. So you're injecting something that aborted fetal cells were used to create this vaccine. Now you're going to inject that into people. Ethically, I'm not sure how you can do that. So like Ivy said, just do your research. The governor of Pennsylvania's mask mandate was just overturned by the courts, unconstitutional. It was voided. So from a legal context, void means never happened. It's a very serious terminology from the courts of Pennsylvania. Okay, we're seeing more and more protests. My best friend got the COVID vaccine, broke out in blood clots. 3 weeks later, has shingles. Think about this. How many people you know have vaccines? They've got a perpetual cough now. They've had shingles. Reoccurrence of cancers. You're seeing all this stuff. So really do your research and think twice before you mandate this on our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Okay. So public comment ended at 6:18 p.m. Circulation of warrants. We all received, I think it was 4 warrants. Looked by the confirmation emails that they were all signed by all of us. I don't have any announcements, so that moves us into the report section. We will now go to the principal's report.
Thank you. Our enrollment as of November 4th is 470 students, which is one more than we had last month when I reported. I just noticed a mistake on my trunk or treat was held on October, I believe, 22nd and not the 29th. It was very well attended. Students and families seemed to have a wonderful time. I'd like to thank the PTO and all the volunteers for such a great event. It was nice to have the community together in the front of the school. We changed it from the back. This was in the folder, but I don't think I have a copy of it, sorry. Picture Day was held on October 25th. Unfortunately, due to rain, the pictures were taken inside. We always like to have the pictures outside. They come out so nicely with the sun and everything, but I'm sure they'll be nice regardless. We had a lockdown drill, just a drill with the Southampton Police Department on October 28th. We're trying to get back into the habit of what we were doing pre-pandemic. I think we kept, the doors open all the time because of airflow and everything. Trying to remember that we need to close and lock our doors in case we have a lockdown drill or a lockdown. We're getting back to that. Parent-teacher conferences were held via Zoom November 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And the reason why they were, the teachers were home. I was thinking they were on Zoom because we weren't allowing visitors into the building. Our Wi-Fi, and I believe it's the security wall, seems to bottleneck when everyone's on Zoom. It's not when anyone is on anything else, but it's just with Zoom. And so I allowed the teachers who wanted to Zoom from home so that wouldn't happen, because we found last time that, and it's only through Zoom. It has nothing to do with anything that we can figure out or Spectrum. So hopefully we won't have to be Zooming for much longer. SYAA, as they said, rented a storage unit for us, and they have started putting materials into the storage unit in order to have basketball in the gym. And actually I checked today and everything is basically out of the gym. So they did a really nice job and I'd like to thank them for that. Due to the construction or reconstruction or renovation of the East Street Bridge, there were some bus routes that needed to be rerouted. And any family that was affected has already been notified. We are going to be working with the Southampton Police Department over the next few months to plan a reunification drill at Norris. So this is something that Hampshire Regional did a couple years ago on a half day when all students were dismissed at 12. They had families that volunteered that would be part of the reunification drill. So if ever there was some sort of say a gas accident with, say, a propane tank truck or a gas truck or anything like that outside of Norris, or something happened where we had to evacuate and relocate to another place, we have to go through the motions of actually relocating and reunifying students with their families. It's a huge task for 470 students, especially as little as 3 years old in preschool, to get buses to Norris, to bring them to Hampshire Regional, to reunify with their families. So this will be a really good drill to practice, and we're going to use the Southampton Police Department. Like I said, we'll work with my crisis team to get that up and running, and we will probably, we did say tentatively that it's the May half day. So we already have on the calendar a half day in May. So the teachers will be going through this practice together on that day. And that's all I have.
I had a question about the SYAA thing.
Yeah.
So there's, and I'm forgetting the name of the other basketball because my kid doesn't know.
Suburban?
Yeah, I just couldn't think of the word.
That's
So
okay.
I've been asked by several parents that they said that the SYAA was allowed to have parents watch games, but the other one was not. I don't know because I wasn't here, so maybe I just missed something in the meeting. But I thought that
it was
a little odd.
MIAA rules, and those haven't come out yet.
Yeah, I think that was the plan because it would be gathering families from other districts.
Okay.
So that was something that they suggested of like, SYAA will let a visitor in for the suburban since, they're not necessarily our community
Right.
members, we'll stream it.
Okay, no, that clarifies. Thank you.
Any other questions for Principal Pluto? Okay.
Thank you.
Then that moves us to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. As everybody knows, the commissioner did extend the mask mandate until at least January throughout the flu season, and they have not provided any guidance as to the 80% off ramp. That's what they call it when 80% of teachers and students are vaccinated. And I think local superintendents think that will become a local decision, so that's something we're going to need to start talking about at next month's meeting, and nobody knows what's going to happen, because it is an equity issue. If, if 80% of the kids are masked and 20 aren't, those 20% of students, we don't want them to be picked on or feel isolated. And also, we don't want teachers also to be the masking police. So there's a lot of things that need to be ironed out there. So we're hoping for more guidance, but we're not optimistic about that. Vaccinations for kids ages 5 through 11. Sorry, we are holding a couple of clinics after school, and it's in all of our newsletters, so please read those. Routine COVID safety checks did start earlier than planned at New Hingham because there was a pre-K close contact episode where a lot of the kids had to miss school. And we hope to do a launch here starting already next week, we hope, for the pool testing. We did get a new pool testing coordinator. National Guard is not coming in. Norton is a new company for CIC Health. They've given us the program coordinator, and right now we already have 2 swab collectors who are all set to go. They've already been quarried. So hopefully that will be underway. They have a big meeting on Friday with Stephanie and the company, and if all goes well, hopefully we can start on Monday, but that's still really tentative. The vaccination testing policy is in effect at 3 of the schools, the high school, Westhampton Elementary, and at Auntie Dumpty. It's 11 employees providing negative weekly test results to me. So far, so good. There haven't been any issues. Rural school aid, so $3 million has been given to 67 schools, and Norris is considered a priority 2 school, which means it's a district that serves between 11 and 21 students per square mile. So Norris will be receiving $35,816, which is great news. And the other schools in the district, this is the first year that all the schools have received something. All the other schools were priority 1, which means that they serve no more than 11 students per square mile. And lastly, the bus driver shortage continues nationally, and I have instructed bus drivers to use common sense in inclement weather as it pertains to open windows, because as much as we, safety against COVID is a concern, so is safety against getting pneumonia. And with windows wide open and kids sitting in wet clothes for long bus rides is not healthy. So,
Do you know if that's an issue with the actual bus company, because they're still leaving the windows completely open? Parents are taking pictures, I don't know if you guys have seen it, and posting pictures of it open when not this week's been pretty nice, but the week before it was like really cold mornings. Like I know I had to start my car way early and they're driving with their windows wide open. So I didn't know if it was coming from the actual bus company or not, but there's quite a few parents posting about that.
Wide open or like the first notch?
Well, they're still complaining about that too, but I know in my classroom alone, I'm seeing a ton of colds and runny noses, and it's the same issue. They're saying, well, they're sitting on a bus with all the windows slit. I mean, if you have every window or even every other window, even just slightly open, it's freezing in there. The heat in buses are not good.
well, thank you for letting us know. I didn't hear any complaints. I heard a lot of complaints before that, why are all the buses open? So we told the bus drivers, but Bobby, have you heard anything?
That's why I was wondering if it was coming straight from the bus company maybe, and maybe they're being told they have to?
No, because they were going to do whatever we asked them to do.
And I haven't heard any complaints.
Yeah.
And I
I can
did
get
check
some
the other
specific
morning.
bus
and
numbers for you if you'd like.
2 or 3
Yeah,
that
that'd
I
be
saw
helpful.
closed. So
Okay.
at least that I could see, they may have been open a crack.
Yeah, we'd like to know if
Yeah,
that is going
I
on,
can
so we
ask
can
them.
talk to the bus driver, so thank you.
And if there's complaints, if people could actually get the bus number.
I'll do that for you.
Yeah, and get that, then we can address it easier. Thanks.
And I had also emailed, I guess I'll share it with everyone, Ms. Pluta and Stephanie about some of the testing, like the COVID testing. And I questioned why we can't opt for, like, as a parent, not as the committee, why they can't opt out of just one. Like if they don't want to do pool testing, why they can't opt out of that but still be involved in the test and stay. And was told that by the state they can't. It's only one form, but I know several other school districts that are not doing it that way in Massachusetts. I know some of my students alone are not in pool testing, but when they've come in with a symptom or exposed, have done the test and stay. So I'm still kind of questioning that too.
Yeah, it was my impression that
I did write to Stephanie too.
they had one consent form, but that you could opt for a split program.
She told me no.
She told you no?
Yeah,
Okay.
so Desi, you raise a valid point, because I agree. I think a lot of people should be given that choice, which one they want to do, because especially at the high school level, we have quite a few parents who want to do the test and stay symptomatic, but not the pool testing for whatever reason. And the form doesn't allow you. Desi wants us to use that form. I think the reason Desi came out with that is because if it was like an a la carte menu, and there's 1,700 kids in the district, that it would be too hard to track. Is what I was told, but I can see if I can find out some more information. But we were told we had to use that form.
That's what she
So it's
said to me,
interesting
so
that there
that's why I
are
was-
schools that aren't doing that, because
I mean, I'm witnessing it firsthand
Yeah, I know.
in my own, and like, I personally don't want, I know other people like pool testing, but I just don't like a group of tests where one is positive. Now all of you have to go keep retesting or have to be tested every week, especially littler. Like I'm in a preschool classroom and it's torture to see them. I know it doesn't hurt, but it's torture to see them have it done. But I can see the whole test and stay where you don't want to have your kid home for X amount of days just because they were possibly exposed.
All right, I'll see what I can find out and
Bothers
see
me.
if we can.
On the same topic of just testing, I'm seeing that the other districts have implemented testing unvaccinated staff, and we didn't really ever discuss that. Did we ever discuss doing that for
if we were to pass the policy and the person had a religious or medical exemption, then the standard would be a weekly test with a negative result.
Right, it doesn't look like we're requiring that.
Well, we
nor-
don't know because we didn't pass a vaccination mandate.
Oh, okay, if there was a vaccination mandate, then you, okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
That would
It
be
was
like in
withdrawn.
place of,
In
Yeah.
place of, gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
On the testing, just curious, where are we at with Norris for current parental authorizations for tests? Do we have a number on that?
I think we do. I asked Stephanie to give me a report. Just have to find it for a second. Oh. That you did. Yeah, right now, 132 students have consent and 9 staff members have consent. So it is opened up to vaccinated and unvaccinated staff members. And all the other schools have very low numbers for consent.
Okay.
Any other questions?
As far as the masks within the school, are we still making sure they're, real quality masks with multiple layers? It's supposed to be 2 or 3 layer masks that the children are supposed to be wearing?
2 layer.
2 layer masks, okay, and that's enforced in the classrooms? Or staff should be reminded of enforcing it, right?
I mean, there's no one using a gaiter, that's only 1 layer.
Okay.
I think that the masks are 2 layers. I mean, teachers are not,
You can't tell.
checking. Well, I don't think we ever talked about teachers checking to make sure. I mean, if we find out or notice that someone doesn't have a proper mask, we definitely call home, or the nurse will call
Okay.
home. We haven't had any issues.
Or if the mess is dirty, give
Or,
them another one.
yeah.
Yep, okay.
If there's only 132 that doing the pool testing, that's not even close to half. So does that even serve a purpose? I mean, that's what we talked about when we were first voting on pool testing, and why the first towns last year we dropped it, because the purpose is it's like an all or nothing, and with less than half, I mean, that's,
I don't know how many parents have found the consent. I'm not sure if it needs to be sent out again as far as a reminder to sign up for
Yeah,
the
we've sent
consent.
it out a few times. It's on the newsletters and,
Well aware.
so last year, in the beginning of the year, they did say Desi wanted to see 80% participation rate. No
I
school's
mean,
doing that.
no, I don't think so either, but not even 50. I
Because
mean,
even when I talk with local superintendents, even if they have 10%, they're still doing it, just for those people to feel more comfortable and get a negative test result. But I agree.
I have a question on rural school aid, but if you guys have
No,
more
go ahead.
mask and testing questions. So is that something that happens every year, the rural school aid?
I don't think we've ever gotten it before.
This is Southampton's first year, it's the
Yep.
3rd year that it's been out.
Okay.
And typically in our district, only Westhampton and Chesterfield Goshen have gotten it.
Awesome.
And 35,000 is not enough.
Well, yeah. I'm taking everything that they said.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
No,
spent.
that's good.
No.
Right.
All right, cool. All right, so that brings us to the chair's report, which is hard because our chair isn't here. And that's only attended by the chairs, right? You guys don't go to that?
Oh, I can tell you about that. Let's see.
Okay.
Oh, we talked quite a bit about our website and how we want to make it more accessible and viewer-friendly for parents and staff. So we've been talking about that with the district administrators as well. We talked about a consent agenda, which the other school districts within our community are implementing. And to be honest, I don't know how helpful it is, but pretty much you would agree, and this was if you want to do this, we could put it on a future agenda. Certain items that are routine, like minutes, second reading of something, you put a little asterisk next to the item on the agenda, and then you would make one motion to accept it all in one swoop. And if somebody wanted to, let's say there's a mistake in the minutes, or you wanted to add something to a policy for the second read, you can say, no, please take that item out. It's supposed to save time and to expedite everything, expedite things for you. But honestly, it's not that time saving, because usually somebody has a question or a comment on one of those items. So I think they did that at the high school and Westhampton. But I can let you know how that goes.
Okay.
If that's something you want to explore. And let's see, what else we talked about? And we talked about the upcoming special education program review with Nancy. Nancy joined our meeting, which she will talk about in a little bit.
Okay. The report from Hampshire Regional.
Thank you. Fairly uneventful meeting, got some great updates of what's going around town, lots of discussion around the 5 districts agreement working group, specifically Southampton's unwillingness to agree to the votes and how the vote allocation and cost allocation is going. Discussed upcoming budgets. More or less everything's cleared out, is finishing up pretty well. You discussed the consent agenda, went over Superintendent Bonneville's superintendent's evaluation, just as we did last time, passed the goals as set forth, just as we did here. The consent agenda passed. Got to hear all about the special education plan statement, got to review that and passed that as well. And I think the best part was we got to approve the donation of a mini split unit by Diamond Comfort in Southampton for the cooling of the lighting booth in the auditorium, which had a history of overheating. And we've had multiple community members who are volunteering their time and expertise to install it and help out the drama club up there.
Sweet. All right. Thank you. PTO report.
They had their meeting last night. I don't think they announced when the next one was, though, did they?
Oh, I don't think so.
I think that we must have missed that part. But we did talk about how the trunk or treat went and what a big turnout it was. They did send out emails about clothing, North School, spirit wear, and what was the other one?
The raffle.
And the raffle. Spirit wear, I did suggest that they send a separate email because it was really hidden in the raffle one. It was like click on this word and it opened it up. So we did talk about that they're going to send out another reminder. They did some posts on Facebook about it as well. And they're hoping to be able to do some kind of bazaar in the spring because we definitely can't right now. And that's a huge money loss right there. So they're hoping to be able to do one in the spring.
When is the raffle due back?
End of the month, I believe.
Before Thanksgiving, probably?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
She didn't say a date now that you say that.
There's
but-
no date on
Yeah, I
it.
was gonna, all right, I'm gonna ask them that.
That's a good one. We should
Yeah.
add that to.
I'll message them tonight. But I think before, too.
Yeah, I think
So
that
They
needs
start
to be-
calling December 1st,
They
right?
said they were gonna send
Yeah.
home a couple
Yeah.
extra copies with like extra names underneath if people needed it too.
And Elise, if you send me the Spirit Wear link, I'll put it in the weekly district newsletter.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't like as an attachment. It was like you had to click on the word and then all of a sudden it opened it. So I think a lot of people buzzed right by it, but it's got a lot of options this year, so.
School council. I don't know who types the agenda now, but just is it possible to split those
Oh,
two?
right, yeah, school, okay, PTO and school council should be.
Yes, I'm not both, thank you.
You can do both. if
I'm
you
all
want.
set.
So we haven't had our first meeting yet. Our next meeting is scheduled for
Tuesday
Tuesday the 16th, right?
at 5.
At 5. So that's upcoming. The 5 district working group, that's also me. I attended the last meeting that we had in October, I believe it was now. So I'll be giving more updates on that later on in the agenda. But again, it was a spirited discussion. I'll give more details on that later. Collaborative for Educational Services.
There's no updates on the collaborative. Their next meeting's next week. They meet every other month, so, so I'll have updates at the next meeting.
Okay. So that brings us to Bobby for a budget update on fiscal year '22.
Carrie, you can take my chair.
That, I can just stand, that's okay.
Yeah, mine.
So I did have this ready for the last meeting, but I can pass this down. I got held up in Westhampton. Not literally, but. So there's not too much. It's the first quarterly report as of September 30th. And I do have a couple line item transfers that are on the first page. One is for the school committee other line, which is $1,944 for your portion of the Mass Association of School Committee membership. Previously, Hampshire Regional had paid it all, and it's now being split out amongst the 5. And the other is principal professional, which is just that the contract was settled after the budgeting process. And I'm taking that from the principal professional development and professional development, because chances are there'll be some money left in that line, given that you can't go out and do a whole lot. So if you want to just look at the line item, the first page is primarily the central office, with the exception of the last section, which is the principal office. And there's nothing much to report there. You'll see that most everything has been spent. There's some money in curriculum, spent or encumbered. There is some money in the curriculum supply line, and some money in office supplies, which is normal as we buy things throughout the year. And then on the next page is most of your instructional, your teacher salary. There is one position that is not in this as of yet. It's the math interventionist. So you'll see that in the next update. And that's about it on that page. And then you have your back page, which is, what happened to my back page? There it is. So, you have your food service, salary, your psych, your health, custodial, maintenance. There is some money left in maintenance, but I'm sure there won't be, given everything we'll have to do toward the end of the year. And then on the very last page, you have your programs in district and your programs out of district. Just to know, on the programs in district, which is line 234, we did spend $16,000. We actually spent a lot more than that, but we had a lot of grants. We had 3 different grants that we used to support those programs this summer. And we will have another one to support next summer. And then that's it, and that leaves us really after the transportation piece. It doesn't leave, too much money. I think there's like $300,000 left as of right now. And then subject to change if a few things change. But so we're doing okay, but we'll take anything we can get for money.
Patty, question about the librarian, and I see that year-to-date spent was $1,300. Did we just reinstate that when we got money from, because we got the librarian, right, for this year?
Yeah.
And then, remember, weren't we gonna make the nurses whole at least until December? Does the librarian fit in there as well?
Librarian wasn't part of that at all, no.
Right, no. Just the nurses.
Oh, so, but 10,000 is encumbered for librarian. I'm just curious.
Is there 10,000?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I'd have to check to see what she's got encumbered.
Okay.
I can get back to you on that.
And the update on making the nurses whole, that's not part of, this is separate than this budget, that was separate.
Yeah, that's the next item on the agenda.
All right.
So,
They want to jump in?
Any other questions for Bobby? Do we need a vote to approve the line item? Okay, so we can do that as long as there's no questions.
I motion to approve the line items presented by Bobby.
I'll second.
Motion, any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? Hearing none, motion passes.
Before Bobby talks about the additional funds from town and use, I spoke with John today, and he said at the select board meeting, I hope I don't mess this up, we should be allocated an extra $6,000. They're not sure how and when that's going to happen. They're working on it, but he just wanted me to let you guys know that.
Okay.
And I hope I heard right.
So then we can move on to the additional funds for town and needs, from town and needs.
So I don't really have anything other than I heard from John via text what they approved, which was to make the nurses whole and to, see my thing here. Oh, it's on my text, I don't have it.
Meaning until the end of the year, they're moving from
0.9 to
0.9 to
1.0.
full. Yep.
Yeah, from that point forward, so they'll make the nurses whole, and some of the mold remediation and that sort of thing that they have, they're gonna take care of that as well.
Things that we had asked for, yeah.
Yeah.
So when does that happen?
I have not heard from Ed, all I heard from
Right.
was from John.
Okay.
So
Just
I'm
don't know
gonna
when the
email-
money is actually there to, I haven't said anything to my nurses about coming back home.
Yeah, I'm gonna email Ed tomorrow,
Okay.
just to see if he can confirm what I received from John from a text. Not that I don't trust him, it just would be nice to hear from the administrator. So I'll check in with him, and then in regards to the 6,000 too, just so that we know. And Elisa has a scroll that she can come up with that. So no worries about that.
So Bobby, with the nurses going home, I thought with the money had to be spent by the end of December 2021. Were we going to shift funds to make it last throughout June?
So what we're gonna do to make it work is that they're gonna cover from September to the end of December for what they had worked, and then that'll free up money to pay for them for the rest of the year. To keep them at whole.
Okay.
Magical.
Fancy.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that. I thought we were just moving them up for a couple months and then moving them back down. And I was like, that doesn't
Yeah, no,
make sense.
no,
All right,
That's great.
That's good.
cool.
that's all I have.
Thank you. That moves us into new business. So we're gonna ask
Nancy?
Nancy to come up and speak with us.
So, I'm hoping that you each got a packet of the special education program plan
The folder's pretty thick.
assurance statement. And this is a document that is required by DESE every 3 years prior to our tiered focus monitoring. So we just finished a tiered focus monitoring cycle. It was supposed to be ended in the 1920 school year when DESE came out and did a site visit, but it was postponed to last year. So now we're starting the cycle again. And this year we'll be doing a self-assessment in certain indicators in special ed. Previously, they covered pretty thoroughly processes and procedures. This time they're going to be looking at facilities, making sure that we don't have special education children in the basement or in closets, or that they're well integrated into the school community. And this document is just an assurance that we implement the rules and regulations that are mandated by federal and state law. So our last audit, we had no findings in special ed and processes and procedures, so you can feel confident when you sign this that we are implementing the things that are required. And I did a little summary as a cliff notes for the larger document that I hope was helpful. So this is going to be due December 1st, so I'm hoping that we'll have this John's signature, the school committee chair, the superintendent, and I need to sign off on it also.
You said it's in the folders? So it wasn't emailed, right? Because I'm like, did I not put it?
No, it's in the folder, it's really thick.
Okay.
It's like 25 pages, and Nancy kindly made a cheat sheet, which was like 6 pages. But it basically says that John and both of us are going to sign off that we're abiding by all the special ed laws, rules, timelines, regulations. And the only reason we're bringing it forward to you is just in a spirit of transparency that John signing this document. So you should all approve, the other school committees approve the school committee chair signing it.
Yep.
And then Nancy will keep us posted, but like the last audit came back with no negative findings, so we're in good shape.
Yeah.
So it was sent out to us, an email from Rachel on 10/29.
Okay.
Okay. And do you have any questions about it? About the contents or anything? No?
Nope.
Okay.
Do we need to vote to approve for John to
Yes.
sign off?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make the motion for our chair to sign off on the education plan, or special education plan.
Okay, motion by Allison, second by Dylan. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. So John has authorization to sign off.
And I'm sorry, I should have introduced Nancy Parklash. She
Sorry.
is our special ed
That was probably my job.
director, so sorry.
Yeah, my last name is tough to say. It is, you know.
I'm glad you pronounced it last time because I was, I think I added some syllables to it.
Yeah. All right, awesome. So thank you very much. Now we have the presentation, which probably Dr. Bonneville on the role of school
Yeah.
committee.
Presentation's a strong word, Austin.
Well,
This is more...
Discussion.
It's more of an informational. This was first raised just at West Hampton Elementary, just the role of the school committee and the school committee chair, so I just kind of did some research and typed this up. But pretty much the rules changed back in 1993 and gave school committees the authority to, so you're in charge of policies and budget and the superintendency. So those are the huge ones. So I'll just review a couple of things. So all educational policies and new course offerings, like at a high school level with program of studies, that's something that you would approve. You do the annual school calendar, code of conduct, because that is a policy with the discipline. And you approve all the curriculum K through 12. So that's why when there's curriculum changes, it's presented to you guys. Clearly, the budget is the biggest thing, and we have to hold a public hearing on the proposed budget, and you can determine the expenditures within the total appropriation voted by the city or town. You already approved the warrants, and anything to do with hiring, termination, or discipline in regards to superintendent, assistant superintendent, business manager, special ed, nurses, school physician, legal counsel, and supervisor attendants, which we don't have. It is interesting that nurses fall under your realm. Nobody seems to know why that is, but that just is. That's very interesting. So if there was ever, like at the high school level, if there's ever an issue with the coaching, the superintendent is the one that appoints athletic coaches. That's not a school committee decision. Anything personnel is really my realm unless it pertains to superintendent, assistant superintendent. And if there is some huge personnel legal issue, we would meet in executive session so I could bring that forward to you. But mostly you wouldn't really know about personnel issues unless it was a major infraction. Principal salaries you do agree upon. So you'll do my evaluation before the when the 5-district working group agreement group finishes the document that hopefully would be approved by everybody, then my evaluation will be done by that committee. But until such time, each committee will individually look at and approve my goals and my evaluation. You do annually adopt the professional development plan. So this is interesting. School committees don't select or reject textbooks or educational materials, but you do ensure that goals are met. and you do approve the school improvement plan every year. I like to do that usually like in May or June for the following year. Was this one approved yet for this year or no? Okay, so maybe we can do that in the future. And just so for the role of the chair, somebody in another committee had asked about like the power of the chair. So it's really that we collaborate together on the agenda. And this is really your agenda that I help to facilitate and put together. And it's the chair's job to run the meeting effectively and making sure that we all stick to the agenda and that everything we really do adheres to the district's mission statement. We really don't have a district mission statement. The one that is online is actually the high school, so that's something that we're going to be working on this year. And really, the chair has the authority that you grant that person. It's not a bad idea to have a self-evaluation of the school committee by having goals. So I was going to talk to John if that's something you guys wanted to do. You can think about that. Mentoring any new members. And speaking of new members, Dylan, I called MASC about the trainings, and there's some things online right now. They're about an hour long. They're free. They're not bad. I watched them all last year, but there should be more trainings coming up in December, and they'll let me know. And then I can pass along that information to you. And the chair would be a spokesperson for the media. Likewise, I'm the spokesperson for all the school personnel. So teachers aren't going rogue or being put on, the principals aren't put on the spot. I handle all that. So I just thought it was interesting to share that with all of you guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Any questions about this?
I actually found that really helpful because it was basic, not like this big drawn out. So it was really helpful seeing it like easier written down. My question about the calendar, I know we don't make the calendar, we just approve it, but do we have a say in any of it?
Yeah, so what will happen is probably like in January, I'll start working with the principals and across the board, right. So like half days and stuff will try to come up. Is there anything in particular that you're...
That was mine. I just feel like Norris has the most half days of any elementary school ever. I know there's more, trust me, I know. But I just think like when we do the 3 in a row and things like that, I just find that really hard for families. That's all.
We don't have enough.
I don't have any except for before a holiday,
So that will be an interesting discussion in January.
we've tried before. It's a hot topic. Sorry.
We're trying to work that out.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I think the principals have done a good job that every year they get closer and closer to being together, like school starts same time, same days, other than, 2 start for teachers a day before, but as far as having PD days on the same and
I think it's necessary for
parent
PDs.
conferences.
Yeah, I think the conference one is hard for me because I feel like 3 days is a lot, where they could just, if they had a whole day off, like as a entire day of conferences instead of
3 days in a row,
half
which are half days.
things like that, I just find.
I have been having
Too much.
internal thoughts.
I know.
That we would maybe move down to 2 days in the fall and 2 days in the spring. Like we moved down to 2 days in the spring already, but I feel like it is possible to probably get them done in 2 days in the fall. As long as, we say now that if your child already had a special ed team meeting within the month, we
Yeah.
wouldn't be asking you to come in for a conference. And I think if we only had 2 days, it'd be easier to say, I can't fit all of my conferences in 2 days if I also meet with every parent I already met with that just had a team meeting, which you're, getting progress updates at the
Yeah.
meeting, so.
They're fairly extensive.
But I wouldn't want to get rid of a half day. I would like to put it somewhere else for professional development, because we only have, 2 full days
Oh, like an open
and
court.
2 half days for the
Yeah.
whole year.
Open court, something that should take 4 or 5 full days.
Right. We don't have, a whole week before school starts like other districts do, like Springfield, Holyoke, or whatever. We just have 1 day before
No,
the
I
first
think
day
for
of
PD you
school.
do have to. I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's like the conferences and
So
things
that's what's
like
hard,
that.
yeah. No, I get it.
Really. And anything that you need to approve, or like, it's my job to know when you do calendars or school improvement plan, code of conduct, I would tell you when that's all due, so you don't have to worry about that.
Sorry, do you have a question? In regards to the budget process, and maybe this is helpful to draw Bobby in again. Last year, we had talked about different potential timelines that might be helpful to avoid the situation, for lack of a better word, of last year, which is, well, so I was wondering if you guys had brainstormed any about what you would like that to look like, or?
Yeah, we are trying to be a little bit more proactive this year and getting them out a little bit earlier. It is really tough. I can't do anything until I can get the assessments done.
Yeah.
And that is, shortly thereafter, the October reports are done, and that's turned in. That's when I can get the data to do the assessment piece of it. And the fact that I have to work on the 2 regionals before the 3 municipals. But we are going to put the central office budget out there first for all 5 schools. And Deanna and I have been trying to go out and meet with the town administrators to see what they're looking for, and just to see, I did reach out to Ed, but he did not get back to me. So we have not had a meeting with him, but we did meet with Chesterfield, Goshen, and Williamsburg. And, it's going to be helpful if we could invite them to our meetings, and then maybe have something of a follow-up with them. We'll take any suggestions you have.
Okay.
But it's a time-constrained process.
Yeah. That's why I wasn't sure what could be done, because I know that there are certain things that happen in a certain order, and those are held up by certain things that have to be done. So if there's something to be done, that's great, but I just wasn't sure what could be because of the way things function.
Well, I think just us trying to reach out to the town administrators ahead of time is helpful, and then, just make sure that we really give them notice of when our meetings are going to be, and, in hopes that they can either send a representative or, come themselves. And if time allows, if they want to have us and if we're prepared, we certainly can come to them.
We need to have their deadlines well in advance. I feel like we didn't have their deadlines that early last time. At least I didn't realize, or no one realized their deadlines were as early as they later communicated.
Right.
Yeah. I think I asked when we were supposed to approve the budget by, and they were like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
Nobody
okay, well,
communicated.
how am I supposed to know that? I'm the new guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do you have an idea of when, it would be helpful for them to more intentionally come to the meetings? Is it in March? Is it in April?
Well, for the regionals, it'll probably be January, between December and March. We'll probably be working on them for that whole period, for Hampshire Regional. And then for the elementary schools, I'll be starting ahead of time, but to have all the full numbers in probably would be more towards late February, early March. And and their communication for timelines would be very helpful too.
Okay.
If they could put that out.
Okay. Well, I assume her comments were done. I hope. If not, we can circle back. So maybe we can have you do some capital updates.
Yeah. I think I had said at the last meeting, I'd like to give you some capital updates because we got a significant amount of money, and we were to replace the old carpeting. And it doesn't do anything justice in the report because it's black and white, but in the folder, it's color, and it looks really good. So we replaced the carpeting in 10 rooms. There's pictures of the old yucky carpeting, and then there's pictures of the new beautiful carpeting. It looks so nice. What else did we do? So the cracks in the sidewalk, which we had done some a few years ago, we added, finished the rest of it this year. And you can see where the damage was on the sidewalk, and then what it looks like now, which is so much better. I think that they did a much better job than the first people. But I think the biggest, nicest change are the shades. So we replaced shades, vertical broken shades and blinds that were in the cafeteria and in the counselor's suite, a couple classrooms in that wing with mesh shades. So regular shades in the counselor's area, but mesh shades in the cafeteria. And it made a world of difference in the cafeteria. And it's funny because I would drive by Norris School and look up and see the broken blinds coming in the cafeteria. And I don't know if anybody notices that when you drive by the school, but now it just looks so much better. And the company did it on the 3 half days. So after the kids dismissed at 12 o'clock, they came in and did it. But on one whole side of the cafeteria, when they finished, the shades were down. So they're like light filtering, and they're a grayish color. But when I said on the next day, say on Friday when they were doing the second half of the cafeteria, I said, leave the shades up. Don't put the shades down. We want the light to come in. So they left one side with all the shades up and one side with all the shades down. And then the side that it's up, it just looks so beautiful. You can see blue skies outside. It just changes the whole temperament of the cafeteria. Everybody just seems like so happy to be light and airy. So it's not remote control. It's still the chain that brings them down, brings them up, and the chain is halfway up, so the custodians have to get on a ladder to put the shade up, and that's fine because we're not doing it every single day. I think from now until when it gets warm, we'll probably leave the shades up. Then when it gets warm, we'll probably put the shades down. But it just really polishes it a little bit, and it's just so much nicer when you're driving by the school or when you're in the cafeteria. So hopefully, if we can have you in sometime soon to take a look at these improvements, that would be great. The doors also, you'll see, they're wooden doors. Basically, in the 5th, 6th grade hallway there's a picture of a door outside Mrs. Burke's class. It doesn't have the arm at the top, so the door just, opens and closes, and there's no, arm to pressure close it or whatever. And it's a one-pane glass, so we're replacing it with a much better door. There's a picture of it there that is a smaller window. It'll be more like the rest of the school that was upgraded. So this is the old wing, old doors. The new wing has new doors. These doors will be more like what the newer wing has. So really excited about it. The hard part is like everyone, the industry right now, things are taking time to get to school and things like that. I can't remember when Tom said the doors were actually coming. They keep saying, 3 more weeks, 3 more weeks, 3 more weeks. So as soon as they come in, we will be installing them. So it'll be exciting. So that's really all I have for capital updates.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other new business people have? Okay, so that moves us on to ongoing business.
Just one quick question on mold and humidifiers, because there was that issue earlier.
Yeah.
Do we have enough humidifiers so that these new carpets are?
We don't have any humidifiers.
Okay. Or
Dehumidifiers.
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 Right.
Then we'll have to get humidifiers to bring it back up. Yeah.
I did have the Tom Lavelli, the head custodian, kind of research how much, how big, what is the size of the room, what kind of dehumidifier would we need, and I have that information, I just don't have it tonight. If we want to talk about it at another meeting, and I'll be prepared to discuss, but, it would be, I think it was I don't even want to say, about $1,000 per class to get the real industrial size one that we would need, that we wouldn't have to empty, 15 times a day or whatever, So, I don't want to quote and say it was actually $1,000 a class, but it wasn't cheap.
Because we don't want to be in the habit of closing classrooms because of mold. And the summers are the issue, right? So.
Well, I think that the newer wing that was redone in 1994-95, those classrooms, we haven't replaced the rugs, they need to be replaced. So that'll be a capital item that will come up. I think part of the problem is the rugs in those rooms, not necessarily just the humidity, but definitely the old rugs. I mean, the padding underneath is just totally gone. It's a flat rug that you could rip.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good.
That's all.
Okay. So we're going on to look at possibly approving the code of conduct that we looked at last month.
Yep. And I really didn't know if that was considered like a first read or not, so I just wrote the dates on the top of the document because we did look at it last time.
Yep.
So I think some of the changes were that when deemed necessary, incidents will be referred to the school counselor for student support. Administration will respond or acknowledge incidents within a reasonable amount of time, but no more than 1 business day. So say something comes in on a weekend or something comes in at late Friday afternoon, and we could at least respond on Monday to say, you know what, we got this email, we got this incident report, we got this, bus conduct report or something, and we will be responding soon, but we need to investigate, but at least you know that we did receive it and we're doing something about it. We also added start with the principal and assistant principal, if necessary, appeal to the superintendent.
Yeah, those were suggestions you guys made last time.
Any
And then
comments?
the bus behavior code is all part of it too, right? The
Yep,
second
it said, like, the Norris School Code of Conduct applies on the bus.
2 questions. On number 6, do you think you can reasonably and consistently reply within 1 business day? Is that
I
gonna
know,
come
that's
under
something
your-
that I
Yeah.
talked about.
It's tough.
What, it doesn't feel right to say 48 hours, right? And if we say 48 hours, are
Especially
we
if it's
including the
severe.
weekends? I feel like someone could call within, what do you suggest?
No, I don't want to put a
As a
policy on
parent,
you.
I know.
I don't want to put a policy on you that you can't meet. I just think
I was worried
that's
about that too.
what
Like,
I'm more concerned about.
If you were both wrapped up in some huge thing, and then if the incident was not that major, clearly if it's a major incident, you're gonna,
I mean, acknowledge is I think gives you the out there, if nothing else, if it comes in, I mean.
An email, a
It
quick
doesn't
phone
need
call,
you,
yeah.
I mean, a designee could send
Right,
out.
right.
Mrs. Carmichael
Secretary,
could send
Carmichael,
a letter
yeah.
that says, we've received your incident, you'll be hearing from us
Exactly.
soon.
That's what
You
I'm
know,
thinking.
So if you're okay with
that
that, I
means.
don't have an issue with that. I just want to make sure we're not setting you up for a position where it's going to be a problem.
I think that, I mean, 2 business, I mean, I don't know. I would never let a major thing go longer than a day with a parent wondering, like, did they even,
I mean, this does say major offenses.
It does go, it says acknowledge, it's not saying you're doing something right then and there. So even if it's I did receive your email, I'm looking into it, and I will get back to you within the next blah, blah, blah.
if it's not a business day, then what is it?
Well, I think it is a business day.
or as soon as possible, I don't know if that's better.
Where you don't specify the amount of time, but you just say within a reasonable amount of time. And leave it more vague. I mean, it's not gonna,
Well, I think it would either be 1 business day or 2 business days. I don't
Right.
think you would go, I think that's the question, really. I think reasonable is not concrete enough, because how do you, I think to some people, depending on the parent and the situation, might feel that 30 minutes is reasonable.
I know, yeah.
And so I don't want to get in that discussion, but I think, I think it comes down to 1 or 2. I mean, again.
Because it's just the acknowledgement.
Right.
The investigation might take
Take
longer.
weeks. What I'm saying is that acknowledgement with, again, this is not, I'm not saying this to, I just want to make sure we're not putting the administration in a position with a policy that you realistically can't meet. That's what I'm looking for.
I'm trying to think of a situation of, say something happened to me on the weekend and I was hospitalized and I wasn't coming to work for the next 3 days or something, and Mrs. Lukaszowicz is in charge and she's me. I might not get to my email to see that someone's reporting something to me to let her know, to make sure you acknowledge it. So
is that where maybe a designated incident email that gets monitored by the admin secretary, the AP, it's a email that goes to 3 people? So it's not just all in your inbox? Is there a
Well,
way
if it's a
to,
parent, they might not
Right.
remember to
Well,
include
like-
all 3.
creating a policy where, I don't know, incidents
it's
are
hard.
reported to the certain, I don't know. Just a way to make it so that it goes to 3 people and just doesn't sit in one person's personal email.
Well, the same way we have a school committee email, it goes to all of
It
us.
goes to all of us, right, exactly. Some sort of process so they know who to send it to, but it's gonna be hard if it's just directly to your,
So would we be asking, because it doesn't just,
like,
it's
email.
never parents, really. I mean, it's not ever, it is parents sometimes reporting that something happened, but more likely than not, it's a bus driver, it's a teacher or a student coming to the office and saying something happened, then you're investigating.
How is it reported? To like your voicemail, or does it go to your email?
The bus driver writes an incident report, like
Okay.
a bus incident report. A teacher writes it on an incident report. I think
Okay.
it says right there, observe the offense, writes a description and sends it to the principal or assistant principal. I worry that, parents right now, what's difficult is change dismissal plans by sending an email to the secretary. And we try to say, don't send the email, you need to send a note with your child. If we're now saying, and then if there's an incident, email this. If there's dismissal change, do this. It's like we're asking people to do too many different things. I don't know.
So you could say within 1 business day of receipt, because, it might take time for the teacher to pass the note to you.
Okay.
And then it would start the clock once you get it to say, hey, I got this thing,
I think that
I'm investigating.
I like that. So administration will respond or acknowledge incidents within a reasonable time, but no more than 1 business day upon receipt,
Yeah.
or upon receipt, administration will respond. Yeah. Okay, I like that.
All right.
I think that gives you at least, we received it on, we responded within, just, yeah. And the second question I have is on number 7. I understand what the intent here is, meaning that if the response by administration is not deemed sufficient,
Right.
then an appeal may be brought to superintendent. However, that's just, that language
Doesn't
say that. It just doesn't, it doesn't seem, the following steps will be taken. Start with principal, assistant principal, if necessary, appeal to superintendent. I think that's,
If she doesn't respond quick enough, they might go straight to Donald's.
well, it's more, it
It's
doesn't
more
say
about
for
the
what.
outcome, I think.
Yeah.
I think if
Right.
you're unhappy with the
Didn't like what you
consequences
said,
or
so moving
the,
on.
the way that the investigation panned out or whatever, you can appeal to the superintendent.
But is that codified anywhere else in the student handbook regarding disciplinary appeals? I guess that's the question too.
And usually there's a time limit too, like within
Correct.
5 days.
Okay.
So we can look at what the other elementary principals, if they have anything. If not, I can use the language that we have at the high school about the appeals process.
And I don't think appeal rights apply to a parent whose child is the victim of a potential situation, or if there was an incident. Then I think, I would just be leery about using the word appeal, because I don't think
Okay.
appeal rights would attach to the aggrieved party feeling that discipline on another student is harsh or not harsh enough. Of course, a student who is subject to the discipline has appeal rights. But the parent of a student whose child was affected by the student who was being disciplined, there's your descriptor of the day, I don't think has appeal rights.
Correct.
So that's what would make me
Clear up
concerned,
that.
to put appeal in
Okay.
there.
Policy review is so much easier when Dylan wasn't here.
Sorry.
So much
Okay, so now this goes for another reading, probably, because there's changes to it.
Well, one more thing that I wanted to ask about was around the bus behavior code. So I was curious if we could add language around, I think I talked about this a little bit last time, but around major offenses. Because I don't see see a situation where a major offense wouldn't result in a bus suspension. So it says it could. Because I think that the discussion last time, as I was reflecting on it, kind of centered around the time in which the suspension would occur rather than if there should be a mandatory suspension for a major offense. Something that's deemed as a major
Maybe
offense.
rewording like consequences for a major incident could or will include a suspension.
I think that, but I thought we also talked about, you know, it has to be due process, right? So you have to be able to, the age of the child, the appropriateness of, you know, the grade and things like that, where it wouldn't be.
Or the cognitively limited student.
Right.
I would hate to see you box in with the word would, and clearly you're gonna, you know, major discipline issues or something else, but I think you have to look at each situation individually. So usually it's a may or could lead to, but that's the only reason why.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the list of things that would fall under that category, fighting, intentional destruction of school property, I mean, foul language, we can have a discussion about that.
I was wondering why that was major.
Not following adult directions, intimidation and harassment of others. I mean, I think it wouldn't necessarily be an immediate suspension, but I think the severity of the offense then correlates with the severity of the result or the consequence of the situation.
Can we say consequences for inappropriate behavior that is identified above? Like these major offenses. So this talks about major offenses, and on the back it just says inappropriate behavior, right? Which are two separate things.
Well, I think inappropriate is the umbrella, and then major offense is like a subcategory. Because not all inappropriate behavior is a major offense.
Well, that's right, but on the way you said it, though, consequences for inappropriate behavior would include suspension. So consequences for major offenses of inappropriate behavior.
Yeah. What if instead of saying, putting a would or, you know, I think this is squarely within the discretion of administration of what, you know, how to apply the policy as far as consequences go. But I mean, what if you put in there that, you know, at the end of consequences for inappropriate behavior could include suspension from riding the bus from one day to entire school year, and shall be commensurate with the severity of the infraction. I mean, you know, that way it's the worse the action, the worse the punish, you know, as kind of an aggregating factor. So, you know, my concern would be you have a child on the bus who has a cognitive limitation, isn't following directions, and is walking all over the bus. And you have a bus driver yelling at them to sit down, pulls the bus over, and has to constantly redirect. Well, upon this writing, that's a major infraction. I don't think it would be appropriate to suspend that child.
But it also
automatically.
says if they're on an IEP, it's modified response. So if they have a cognitive impairment, they're going to be on an
They
IEP.
may or may not. They could be on a 504.
They
You
could,
know,
but that's
I mean-
still a plan. It's still saying, you know,
So I guess
an individual education plans.
504.
I think about it as well, when you say intentional destruction of school property, you know, kindergarten, first grade impulsive kiddos pokes their pencil in the seat of the
Yeah.
bus.
Right.
That's very different than a fourth or a fifth grader writing all over the back of the bus seat with a permanent marker. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a huge difference there, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think the offenses that I'm most concerned about are fighting, intimidation, and harassment of others. If you're engaged in that behavior, to me, it feels like there are very few exceptions to be made if I'm the parent of the student that received that behavior. I would want to see something that's a little less loosey-goosey and is more targeted and firm. That behavior is not to be tolerated.
Right, and I hear you. I think we have to leave this open in a would and could, because we're school committee setting policy, and I think we have to let the administration enact the policy. And I think what Dylan is suggesting with this, the additional sentence for the level of severity should, that gives some more oomph to this. But I don't think I don't think I'd want to pigeonhole in, because we never know what the circumstances are surrounding that child. And I think at elementary school level, at a high school may be different. At an elementary school, there's just a huge variety, and I think we have to leave more of this open and trust our administrators.
I feel the same way.
So it seems like we have some revisions, so maybe we would put this to a third read then, or next meeting, and then we'll hold the vote after that time when we see the revisions.
Do you want to add the language of that?
I don't think it's necessary, but I understand Austin's concerns.
Right.
I mean, I think it's implied.
I think it is
Yeah.
too, and I think specifically under bus behavior code, Norris School Code of Conduct applies on the bus, which means bullet point number 1, everything on page number 1 applies under that list, so.
Because it says on number 4, consequences will depend
Right.
on the age of the child, seriousness of offense.
Yeah.
So I think all that applies.
Right. So it sounds like the only update to this is not the bus part, but part 6, upon receipt of the incident
Adding
report.
upon receipt.
Well, and
And
7.
the
And
appeal, yeah.
And the
Yeah,
appeal.
we'll have our attorney look at it again as
Okay.
well with any changes, so.
That's great.
Poor Dylan.
All right, so we will leave that to a third read. Update of COVID student safety checks.
Yeah, I just had Stephanie Foss, our Director of Health and Nursing, write up a little update. So this is what she says about Norris COVID testing. She ordered and received all the necessary supplies for the pool testing, and she did receive the Binax test for the test and stay. The nurses have completed the training for the Binax and software to support the Norris and staff as needed. The initial information regarding the program was already in the link sent out to families and staff, reminding them in our weekly newsletter home. At current, we have 132 students have consented and 9 staff members, and there's no minimum needed to move forward. We do have a testing program coordinator, Colleen Smith, who's going to be coming to Norris Friday to plan logistics and operation for the pool testing. And so far, we have 3 swab collectors who will perform the pool testing. And we just did query checks, and we're getting letters of suitability for fingerprinting for all the staff, for all the testing staff that's going to be in our buildings. We're doing the query checks in central office, and we hope to start on Monday if everything goes well at Friday's meeting. So nothing new to report, that was just her highlights.
Okay. Any questions about that? All right, so then that brings us to the,
Oh, wait, I do.
Yep,
Sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
Like, just kidding. So if it is starting Monday, is Monday starting just the pool testing or starting both? The testing day?
So, do you have any test and stay that's already been done at your school?
No.
Okay, yeah, so the test and stay, there's no reason why the test and stay and symptomatic testing can't start.
Well, we are not doing symptomatic testing, only testing.
Test and stay, why test and stay can't start? Sorry, get them all.
Okay, you've got a lot
On
going on.
Monday, that will definitely start Monday.
Okay.
For any student who needs it. And it's already started in the other schools as well, so, yeah.
Had you said earlier there was something that already started at the end of October because of pre-K cases? Or was that
At
something-
New Hingham,
New Hingham, okay,
yeah.
okay.
If, do you happen to know the speed on which these authorizations go through? Let's say you had a parent who didn't.
Instantly.
Okay.
So that's another thing. We realized, so like if you didn't have your students sign up and there was an outbreak and they were identified as close contacts, we'd call you and hopefully you would do the permission slip right then
Told
and
me that
there.
was my only loophole. Because I said I did not want pool testing.
Agreed.
She did say that, say he was exposed, so-and-so next to him, blah, blah, blah. They could technically say, are you willing to do the So she said that's the only little loophole. But
Yeah. And then
I
you can-
think that'll change consent forms too. Like, that's why I think there should be a separate consent form, because then you won't have to go through all of those phone calls with the close contacts. But, it's okay.
I was wondering if we have a withdrawal of consent form, because if you were signing it just for test and stay, so if you're playing the loophole, you
Oh,
would-
sneaky.
and then withdraw
I
it
asked
once that
first.
period's over. I mean,
We will examine loopholes and see what we can do. The only loophole that I'm
She
aware
didn't
of
word it as a loophole, by the way.
at the high
My
school
words.
is, like with pool testing, if you sign up for your child, just when it's time for pool testing, your student just doesn't participate.
Right.
But then, I don't know, like with little kids, if you've got a kindergartner, they want to listen to adults, so I don't know, how that works out. But the way the test and stay has worked at New Hingham, and it's worked out very well. So let's just, I'm just looking at you because you're Allison, you're right across from me. But if your child was labeled a close contact because of an incident that happened in school, it would not qualify for like a sleepover or a weekend thing or sports thing. But you would have to drive your student to school for those 5 days, wait out in the car, and I think they try to do it like 15 minutes after school started. They go to your car, they test and swab the kid, you wait 15 minutes, and then you find the results, if all's good, you go to work, and your student comes into the building.
Yep, that's what we're doing at my school as well.
Yeah.
Well, we're doing it in school, but same difference.
Yeah. We were worried about contaminating others if, God forbid, it was a positive case. You don't want the writing on the
No,
bus.
I think that's it's good to do that. Keep them in school instead of out.
Yeah.
any other questions?
Right now, how are close contacts communicated? Is it through letters or phone calls at home?
The nurse.
The nurse calls, okay.
Right, yeah.
All right, so at that time, a nurse would call and then
Yeah.
maybe check and see, is this person signed up, and then give the instructions
Yeah.
on the consent if needed,
Yeah.
okay.
Any more?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, just making, I'll leave a longer pause next
Nope,
time.
we're good.
All right, cool. So we're going to the all districts working agreement now. So, like I said before, that was a spirited discussion.
And you
with-
handle yourself very well.
There were lots of questions that people were asking of me, and although, you know, as we reviewed before, someone who's not the chair can't speak for everybody else, but I could speak to what you've said publicly as individuals and what my personal viewpoint is as the committee member. So I tried to stay in that lane. You know, I was wondering if some of the discussions going forward should be in an executive session, but it wasn't posted on the agenda. So we can't do that tonight, but curious just because it applies to negotiating strategy. I think that would qualify, right?
I'd have to ask our attorney about that.
Okay.
Could be.
But anyways, I can do other reports. So because all of this was public meeting anyway, so some of the things that were brought up were discussions around some sticking points. One of them was that right now, John had communicated at the meeting previous to that we might be able to entertain dropping the shared costs to the way that it's been done, instead of the percent mandatory for each town and then dividing it the way that it's been done. If we were able to get a weighted vote based on student population, I think it was, right? Student population.
Student enrollment, correct. Because it's
Student enrollment for school.
Yeah, okay. So the feedback that I got was no to both of those. And I said, well, no to saying no to both of those. And said, you know, we really need, or I felt like we really need something to protect Our school, because the position is that right now they can make moves without us and then send us the biggest bill. And that really hurts in Southampton because the dollars for Hampshire Regional are mandated, so it comes directly out of Norris. And we all know the budget situation at Norris, that we need more money, not less money. And so the situation that I brought up as a hypothetical is if you guys decided that we really want that assistant super / HR manager, we couldn't prevent that, but we do have to fund it out of the Norris budget for that reason, and that results in a loss of a potential staff member. And so we would be strongly opposed, but there's nothing that we could do about it. And so that's why we want something to keep everyone with more skin in the game, because the other districts have populations that have been shown to approve overrides when the town needs it. Our population over and over says no to overrides. They're not willing to support what we need. So, that's the reality of the situation. We put that information out there and they said, make cuts. So that's what we had to do. But that puts us in a position where we need to be cognizant of potential future cuts, and this is an avenue where potential future cuts could come from. And I'm not really at the position where I want to cut a teacher at our school to add a central office position. And that's not to say that central office isn't valued. It's very valuable, and you guys do a lot of hard work for us. But when push comes to shove, I would, move to not have a teacher cut. And so, one of the members said, well, your town and your override position is not our problem. And we got stuff like that. But basically what they wanted to, and what I suggested, because we kind of came down to a stalemate, was I said that I can't speak for you guys, but I feel that if I brought back something that had no weighted vote and no increased cost share between the schools, I didn't have confidence that you guys would sign off on it, and I wouldn't want to sign off on that. So I didn't see that was worthwhile bringing back, but what I did want to do is have people go through and identify what potential concerns that they had for the items in the working agreement if we had a weighted vote, which would be capped at less than the majority, so we could never act alone to do anything. But that's what I'd asked to do, so that's also something that we could do, but I felt like that discussion should probably be executive so we could strategize as far as what we wanted to negotiate. So I might pause that, and maybe if we need to have a quick executive at a special meeting or something before we come out with that strategy, that would be good. But I did ask the other districts, what is your main concern that Southampton is going to do with a weighted vote? Like, how are we going to terrorize you? Because we're out to, make sure that the level of service at our school stays in the position that it is and doesn't go any lower. So what threat does that really pose to you? And so they're all asking their committees to come back with feedback. The next meeting that we have, I believe, is to go over the superintendent's evaluation process.
Right, and central office costs will be discussed, I want to say December 16th, maybe?
Yeah. So I think we might have one more crack at a regular meeting before we have to go back and negotiate that. But, it didn't seem like any of the other committees were voicing support for a weighted vote option. It doesn't mean that they were against it, but no one said, yes, Southampton will stand with you. So it was a lot of back and forth with me and other individuals. So
maybe scheduling an executive.
Was John there also?
no, he was not able to attend.
Okay.
So, I did mention the I sent an email with the questions that came out of that to him for us to discuss tonight. But again, I feel like some of those concerns might apply to strategy, in which case I would like to reserve it in case we can do it in executive and then have a cohesive strategy.
So another thing that came up was kind of like a time study with central office. So I did meet with central office this week, and that conversation did not go well. It was very long, a few hours long, and a lot of hard feelings.
Yeah.
More that, it was kind of phrased, what does Southampton feel that they're not getting as far as services? I forget how you had worded it. Sorry, I can't recall right now.
Right.
It was somehow worded that you want to make sure that if you're paying the lion's share of the bill, that you want to get the lion's share of central office personnel work directed towards Norris. And everybody kind of in the group felt that, how is it written now, 36%?
Yeah, right around there.
Yeah,
35.
that if anything, you guys got more than that. That we're unaware of any service that you're not getting from central office or the level of care that we believe you're getting the level of care that is required and needed, and if anything more than, I think about like technology, and that Kim spends, I think, way more time at Norris than others, just because we don't want students for there to be an equity issue with kids. So we try to, and Kate puts a lot more resources for grant writing for Norris, because the other communities don't have, financial difficulties such as that. So that was, the time study thing, the conversation did not go well at all.
And, my comments during that meeting were that something down that road is probably impractical, because we want resources to be able to be directed towards needs, not not an arbitrary percentage. So they said, well, what if certain people were spending certain days at, and that just seems, like it's not going to work out. Rather, that's why I was saying this is why we suggested these other two fixes, because it kind of gives us something, makes us feel protected against having to make more steep cuts to our students. There was the reason that I brought up that was more to point out, because one of the members from Westhampton said that they feel like they're subsidizing Southampton. So I very calmly said that argument and said, actually, if you look at, dollars spent versus time spent, we might be subsidizing other towns, which might be evidenced by the fact that, we could potentially, have not the right allocation. And that's not to say that it doesn't need to be that way, but just that there should be some sort of protection. Because the mantra is, we're all in this together. So but we're the only ones having to make cuts. So, we're not all in this together if we're the ones cutting and you're adding services. That's not all in this together. So,
Also, is there a way to move forward with the document without including the central office piece, like put that on hold for a year and look at the other, because the other stuff is about superintendent, hiring, firing, discipline, and I think it says 2/3 vote, I think. And the makeup of the committee, how the terms of the committee, that kind of a thing, responsibilities. But I don't know if we should just, as a whole, agree. I don't think there's going to come there's just not going to be agreement on that. I mean, I think that same discussion, I came to these meetings already starting in May, and as far as the central office piece, there has been no movement in 6 months in regards to that. So I don't know, the rest of the document, I think the first 9 out of the 10 pages, everybody is in agreement with. So I don't know if, clearly the central office piece is a big piece, but.
yeah. And I do think that we could make progress on those items, but to me, it has to clear that hurdle. So I like to work on the hardest part first and then let it kind of roll downhill. But that's another strategy that we could employ, is to work on the easier things and go towards the hardest thing. But just without negotiating that piece and having an agreement that people can sign on to in all the towns, then none of it matters, right? Technically, because then we don't have an agreement. And my goal would be for us to have an agreement.
Is this a situation that needs a mediator to move it forward on that piece? Is there an outside mediator that?
I think minds need to change. So without that happening, I mean, a mediator can facilitate the conversation, but it was respectful. Everyone was speaking.
Yeah, and at the chairs
It was-
meeting, we discussed it, so I think a couple of the chairs are going to try to look at the formula and see, in the weighted vote thing, and see if there's like a happy medium, or at least more of a compromise on both sides that might be amenable to everybody.
Okay. All right, so more to come.
Yeah, so we
Mm-hmm.
have offered stuff like to cut out that cost sharing piece, to cap our potential weighted vote to be below the majority. And that, for me, is the frustrating part, is we're saying, okay, well, what about this compromise? What about this compromise? What about this one? And they're like, no, we want you to have the current agreement the way it is, set in stone forever, so that we can do what we want to do. And that's fine if it gave more money to Norris, but it could very easily go the other way, and I'm just not going to sign on to something that's going to do that. So, that the other question that they mentioned, and again, we can see if this can be hashed out a little bit in executive or not, is John had mentioned to them that we were reserving the right to walk away. And so they said that they're having trouble negotiating with that on the table. So again, one of the questions, and we don't have to talk about this now. In fact, I don't want to talk about this now, but I don't control you guys. They wanted to know, are you willing to take that off the table? So, but again, I think that's a question I would prefer to apply to strategy, because it is directly strategy of a negotiation. Those were the main things, I think. Yeah, but I thought it was as collaborative as it could be for a deadlocked group.
Yeah, you handled yourself very well, yeah. Because you were definitely on the, everybody was coming at you from all angles, for sure.
Yeah, but it did feel like they were making arguments instead of yelling. And that's not always the experience we have on school committee. Sometimes we just get yelled at without substantive arguments. So, I felt like that was nice.
When's the next meeting?
It is Tuesday.
Yeah, that's
And again,
only
that's to go over
the evaluation piece.
the superintendent. I think that's going to be a lot more agreeable
Okay.
of a discussion, but it's public, so any members of the public are welcome to attend that. And that's it for that.
Was there any discussion around the vote and splitting off different types of vote regarding weighting? For example, votes on budgeting and personnel to be weighted, whereas votes on other central office procedure, superintendent evaluations, that kind of thing, to be a straight.
So there's already some of that, but I think that's something else that we could explore. But again, that's maybe a strategy.
I'm just curious, only because I agree that I'm not saying either way in this. It's just the, to the superintendent's question of can we, not leave her goal setting in limbo for the next umpteen years. we don't really want to be planning a retirement party after we're still not having a resolution on a 5-district working group of where this vote's going. 30 years down the road, hopefully. That's my only reason for bringing that up, is those things. Is that the way I always think is they want a Senate, we want a House. And
Right. So they did bring that up as like, in government, it's representative for and equal for all. And I was like, well, that's the Senate, though. That's not the House of Representatives, in which, it's weighted on per person, because that's, an equitable way to do things as well. So I think it's just different perspectives, and maybe the status quo works for some, and, for others it doesn't. And so that's why we're a little deadlocked.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. But I think everyone agrees that we love the students of all the towns and we want the best for them, and we just have different avenues by which to achieve that, so. No? All right, so any other thoughts or questions about that? So we'll check with legal about.
Yeah, and did you want to have an executive session before? When is it? It's December 18th, so I don't know when, I don't know the calendar.
I think we're the second week of the month, I believe, the second Wednesday of the month, so then that would be before the next.
Okay,
So our next meeting would be December 8th.
Yeah.
Okay, is it the 16th or the 13th? I was thinking it was the 13th.
It's the 13th at 5.
It's the 13th. It would still be 4.
Yeah.
yeah.
So we would still have a chance to do that.
Yeah.
So I think we would be okay just to add it to the regular agenda.
Okay.
And then if legal rules it out, then we could just not do that that day. So, all right.
Yeah, do you want legal at that meeting? At the executive?
I don't think we need them. I don't know. What do you?
We've got 3 weeks before we need to post an agenda, so I think we can probably get the opinion on whether or not that's even viable. I think that might be a good call for John to be part of for the agenda setting.
Yeah.
As we learned in our role of school committees today.
Right. Okay. So that's all of our ongoing business. So I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.